Welcome. What brings you in today?
Well, I think I just wanted to talk with someone about my relationship with my mom. We've, to kind of give you some history, I guess, we've had kind of, like, we had a good relationship with me growing up, but just since kind of like I left college, I went to college, left for college, it's been somewhat rocky. We've just kind of taken different paths, I guess, in a lot of ways. And so, I moved away to college. I moved to Chicago, and I've been there for the last 5 years, and then I just moved back. And she lives in Washington, but it just seems very close now. Like we're not able to kind of like have the distance that we had, which is a good and bad thing. But we would talk on the phone, or we would text or something, and that kind of made it so that we really didn't have to talk about our issues.
I see.
But now that we're here, it's become like we can't hide from each other as much anymore.
I see.
So
you mentioned that you guys took different paths. Is one of your decisions to go off to college, is that what has caused the division between the two of you?
Well, I definitely think it's part of it. Like I said, we were very close with me growing up. But when I went off to college, I do feel like some of my thinking changed, and my worldview changed a bit. And so, like, when we would talk, I was now contradicting her, or I was now saying different things than what we used to say together, I guess.
I see.
And so that has been a cause for a problem. Like, I'll give you an example of, I remember being a sophomore in college. I came home, and I had taken one of my first, like, spirituality classes. I went to a Christian school. We had to take some religious classes. And somehow we got on the topic of religiousness and spirituality and that kind of stuff. And not that I don't believe in God, because I do, and I'm a Christian and she's a Christian, but the way kind of we thought about things was different now. I feel like I might have a little more liberalness to me, and she has more of a I don't know, just a very traditional view of things. And so, like, that was one of the first times where she kind of looked at me and it was different. And things were like, why do you think that? And why are you talking like that?
I see.
And so, and in that way, it's just been like, we've never really talked about our differences. We just don't talk about it.
I see. Okay.
So it's, like I said, now that we're back, it's like we're seeing each other and we're visiting, and now being face to face, we can't just not talk. We can't just, like, turn off the phone and go do the things that we were doing before.
Right.
So yeah, and then compounding that, I have an 11-year-old sister.
Okay.
And growing up, I was very much a part of her raising, her being raised. So that's another source of conflict for us.
I see.
Is now I went off and I was more removed, but now I feel like I'm back. And I want to spend more time with her. I want to see her more, and we conflict in the way that we think about things.
Right. So it's interesting, when you went off to college, even though you were close with your mother, you were able to take a number of classes that kind of changed your worldview,
Right.
and therefore changed your relationship with your mom. And now you're trying to kind of re-envision what that relationship looks like.
Yeah.
Because it seems like she's no longer the parent, and that you aren't just going to go along and agree with what she says because she's your mother.
Right.
So what kind of relationship do you want with your mother? Because you mentioned that it's something that neither one of you are willing to confront. But now that you are closer, it's kind of an imminent decision. Like it's
Yeah.
got to be a decision that you make.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to think about that, and it's been difficult because I can't imagine a situation in which my mother is different, and which I know I can't change her, so that's not really something that I can work towards. But just, I guess what I would want is just for us to be in a space together where we weren't constantly thinking about what was past, what has been past, the arguments, the conflict. We're not constantly, that's not in the back of our minds. I know that's in the back of my mind. And just be able to enjoy the space, enjoy the time, and be able to move forward.
And that sounds like it's a really tricky thing to do, simply because there's so much rich history between the two of you.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, you don't want to change her. And I think part of you probably wants to embrace this new person that you've become.
Yeah.
So you don't want to perhaps compromise, some of your independence as well.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a really viable goal that you have in mind, because you said just to be able to accept one another in the space and not bring the past into the relationship. I think that perhaps if you could tell me more about maybe the last time that you guys interacted. What was that like for you, and what was it like for her, and perhaps even for your younger sister?
Well, actually, the last time that we interacted was at my mom's wedding. So,
How long ago was that?
That was a month ago.
Okay, so after you moved back home to Washington.
Right. Okay. So my mom, my parents were divorced. They got divorced when I was younger. And so she just got remarried. And so it was a good situation, because we all want to be happy. So we went up there to see her and help her get ready, and I was a bridesmaid, and so I was helping facilitate everything. But the thing about it is that it did feel like a lot of the past was still there, at least for me. My mom and I I feel like I keep needing to give you a little backstory, but my mom and I growing up, we had a good relationship, but I was in some ways equal to her in situations where it was like a buddy-buddy relationship. It was more like a friend thing, so she relied on me as much as I relied on her.
I see.
So that is something in the past 5 years of me being away that I've been trying to work on, is just boundaries between us, and kind of making that system a little, hopefully more the way that it should be. So going, having this situation of her getting married, which is great. It just felt like we were kind of back to that old system of me taking care of things and making things right for her.
I see. So may I ask? So this feeling you felt occurred during the wedding. What happened that stirred that feeling? Did she ask you specifically for help, or what exactly did she do?
I am trying to give her as much credit as she's due. I was a bridesmaid, or I was helping her, so it wasn't like that was out of my responsibility or what I was doing. But it just felt like, I was a bridesmaid. I wasn't the maid of honor, but I was in control, and I was supposed to be fixing everything, in the reception where we were, if something was wrong, or if something was a little not what she wanted, she was yelling my name to fix it.
Okay.
And being away, I didn't have to deal with that.
I see.
And so it was jarring, I guess.
Yeah, it sounds as though you began thinking about the past when she started yelling your name.
Yeah.
And she asked, it sounded almost like she was reprimanding you rather than asking for help.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the boundary that you would like, you, rather than being someone who is going to assist her, that you would like clear boundaries as the parent who's in control, and then the child as well. So what I'm hearing a lot of is that you are discovering that you have this new sense of who you are.
Yeah.
And perhaps it's not something that you feel comfortable venturing into with your mother. I'm curious to know if she's aware of how you feel. Is this something that perhaps you've discussed with her?
Yeah. Bits and pieces.
Okay.
We've never really discussed things well. And that's definitely on me also. You know, it's just always, it's either not come out at all or it's come out when we're arguing, which is never a good sense of communication. So we don't communicate in a positive or, you know, moving forward sort of manner. Or we're not really talking at all, or we're, you know, it's very surface level. And I'm just kind of like tired of doing that.
I see.
So, yeah.
Can you recall the last time you had, beyond just the wedding, it sounds like you've spent a little bit of time with her in addition to that event.
Yeah.
So you said that you are, you feel a little stuck because you've hinted or maybe made an attempt, but then it kind of goes back to the same routine where there's a little bit of conflict there, right? So what makes you think that? Is there a specific incident besides the wedding
That makes me feel stuck?
that brings you back to that place you were at when you were a kid, where you felt like she was not the parent, and that you were basically, you know, peers.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's kind of bringing my little sister back into it. That's kind of where that's come up a bit. Just, you know, I guess being with her here, and if I'm not doing things the way that she wants them done, it's a conflict, it's a problem. And not that, you know, if like, I'll give you another example. So, my little sister came to stay with my husband and I over the summer for like a week. And there was constantly, every day, an issue. Every day, something new was wrong with what we were doing, how we were doing it, that kind of stuff. And it was just like, you gotta stop. You have to stop. I can't have a good time with her, and she's not having a good time, because we're constantly, like, there's like this constant tension. And so it was always like she was never, she like forced herself into the situation. It was like never that she was just in Seattle and we were here. Like it was always just, she was right there. She was always constantly there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, you said that your sister stayed with you, but you didn't say that your sister came to visit with your mother.
Right.
Did both of them come?
No.
Okay, so I'm a little lost. How did your mother know about what was going on on a daily basis? Was she just checking in?
She was checking in.
Okay.
My little sister has a phone.
Oh, I see.
So constantly she was wanting my little sister to constantly be texting her, constantly telling her what we were doing, constantly whatever, all of that stuff. And if she didn't, she was calling me over and over again until she got me.
I see.
So it was frustrating, to say the least.
Right. Like it sounds like she was doubting your abilities.
Yeah.
And that really was very hurtful for you.
Yeah, especially because like I said, had a pretty significant role in her life since she was little. And so the idea of me coming back and that not being the case is odd to me.
Okay. That does sound unusual. You said it feels odd to you that you did have such a huge role in raising her, even though you are her older sister, and yet all of a sudden your mother is doubting your capabilities.
Yeah. Right.
And that's something that you mentioned to your mother after that week stay?
Yes, but like I said, not well.
I see. What was that conversation like?
Yeah. Well, it was mainly us just very unhappily, me saying, this will not happen this way again. I'm not going to be treated this way. This isn't working. And her giving all the reasons why she thinks that she was justified.
I see. So you guys both, in the heat of the moment, shared your opinions, but there was no compromise and
no resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
And neither one of you guys were hearing one another.
Right.
It was really that both of you guys were frustrated and felt like you were entitled to your feelings.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So right now, you're kind of just bringing it all together. It's like we both feel like we're entitled to our feelings, just as you said. And I understand that. That's, of course, she would feel just as I feel that she's entitled to her feelings. But we don't really know how to move forward from that. Like, it's either we're unhappy with each other and we're telling each other we're unhappy with each other, or we're not speaking at all. Or we're not, well, not to say we're not speaking, but we're not developing a relationship. We're just very surface level.
I see.
So,
well,
yeah.
What I find really interesting about what you've mentioned is the fact that you said that when you were growing up, you wanted her to be, I guess, a traditional mother figure or parental figure.
Sure.
And I'm not taking sides here. This is just kind of a hypothesis or something that I'm seeing. When she conveyed to you what she wanted in that week and how you should have perhaps parented your younger sister, did you see that as her being a parental figure? Because now she's kind of dictating how your younger sister should be treated.
Right. I think how I took it is we've come this far. There should be a little more trust here.
So it really doesn't matter that perhaps she was trying to be a parental figure, but that you felt as though she should have been a little bit more patient with you and trusted your abilities?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I don't feel like now, I don't feel like we need to be a traditional mother-daughter system.
Okay.
We're kind of past that in a ways. I'm an adult.
Oh, okay.
But I feel, I guess, in the past, I wish we would have been a little more in that framework. Because I felt like there was a lot of responsibility put on me in that way. But now, it's like that stuff is the past. So we can't go back. Like, we can't fix it now and say that, okay, well, we'll start that orientation now, and I'll tell you what to do and you do it. Like, that's not going to work. Or at least I wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying, because I didn't quite understand what your expectations for your mother is right now. So at the moment, it's not necessarily that you want her to be a parental figure for you, because it's kind of this moot point. But instead, you want to be able to see eye to eye with her and have respectful and caring relationship, and not have her yell at you. For example, you mentioned for the wedding, have these expectations that you're going to take care of things, but on the flip side, also have a bit of confidence in your ability to take care of your very own sister, right?
Yeah. And the way, and you labeling, like, making it out that way, like, it does seem confusing. Like, I do feel, like, conflicted in how I want things to be. Because if she was all of one way, then, you know, I don't know if that would work. Like, I don't know where it's going.
Right. And I think it's okay to be able to talk about that now and be able to figure out, well, what is your vision of the role that she should play in your life, or the role that you want her to play?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm sorry I never got a chance to ask what your sister's name is.
Her name is Lydia.
Lydia. Okay. So she's 11 now.
Yep.
And how often do you get a chance to visit with her?
Well, my goal is to see her at least once a month.
Okay.
Since I've been back.
All right.
And I've been able to do that. With school starting and with her school starting, you know, I'm interested to see how it's going to work. But we do have the holidays coming, so I feel like we'll be able to have some good quality time there. And even like when I lived in Chicago, I'd fly her out to spend a few weeks with me.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So
obviously it sounds like you really want to maintain this bond that you have with your sister.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm curious to know when you're interacting with your mother, what your sister's reaction is. Is that something that you can share with me?
Yeah. You know, I think that, like, I'm kind of glad you asked that, actually, because I'm realizing that I don't see that as much. I haven't been paying attention to that as much, which I don't like. I think that there is some tension there that I've seen. Like, I'm thinking back to, like, her being here and my mom calling a lot. Like, I could tell that there was tension for her because of that situation. I do worry that the way that my mom, you know, raised me, of us being somewhat close and in responsibility, is somewhat the way she's raising Lydia.
Okay.
So that Lydia is also not just aware of what's happening with the grown-ups, but she's also feeling like that's part of her responsibility, which I don't like. I've never wanted her to feel that way.
I see.
And so I do try as hard as I can to keep her out of it as much as possible.
Okay.
So, like, I don't talk badly about my mother in front of her. Like, I don't, like, we don't talk about, you know, oh, mom did this. Like, I don't want that to happen, because I don't want her to feel like she has to choose. Especially in this time where we're kind of, like, figuring out our relationship. So, yeah.
Well, she clearly has a very caring sister who's watching out for her. You mentioned that she felt some tension. Could you explain that in more depth? Tension because she was kind of caught in the middle, or I don't know if you can put yourself in her shoes to maybe imagine what she was feeling.
Yeah. I think because she was caught in the middle, I also feel like just, you know, she wanted to appease both sides, and I don't like that she had to feel that at all. But, you know, like I remember her talking to my mom, because she was on the phone, and it just being like, Mom, it's okay. Like, we're just doing this. It's fine. And I don't want her to be in that role where she has to feel like she has to do that. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful, because you're noticing that what you needed when you were a child is perhaps something that your sister needs too, and that this might become a cycle. That it sounds like that's what you're fearful of.
Yes, very fearful.
And you know, it seems like you've got a great head on your shoulders.
trying.
So, and it seems like that experience has actually empowered you. Like you're a very independent person just based on our conversation. So, what fears do you have for your sister? You said that she's going to play that same role. What would she lose if she didn't have the parental figure that you lacked?
Well, I feel like we're different. I feel like the way I grew up, I did grow up in a 2-parent household. My father wasn't that great, but he was there. And so there was a stability there that I had that Lydia does not have, in that it's been my mom and her, and now this new person has come in, and just, he's a nice person, but there's that instability there that she's been experiencing her whole life, and it being, just that we have had different experiences, and she has different personality traits than I do. So, yeah, I guess I feel like there's a difference between us, but I mean, maybe there's not. I don't know how she'll grow up. But I guess that's my fear.
So you're recognizing that the way in which she has grown up is a little bit less stable because there wasn't a father figure in her life.
Yeah.
And now that she has a new stepfather, that doesn't necessarily change things.
I think the main thing is that and not that she doesn't have a father figure, but that my mother has changed since I've been raised.
Is that good or bad?
It's both. Okay. It's both. She instilled in me different values than she currently lives by now. So, yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah, and I can see why you're struggling with this. So there's so many different layers that you're mentioning.
Yeah.
There's a different childhood, different relationship with your mother, and then also that your mother has changed too over the years. She's not the same parent, and so you're struggling and you're worried.
Yeah.
You're really worried about how it's going to affect your sister.
Right.
Okay.
So, I guess, I mean, I am worried, and that's where that fear is coming from. And like I said, I want a good relationship with my mom. I just don't know how to not only keep the past out of it, but also, not see Lydia as an extension of a troubled situation. Not that I see her in that way, but I see the three of us, our family system, in that way.
Wow.
So, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think this is very complicated, like you mentioned, because you're perhaps projecting that Lydia is going to have possible problems because of her upbringing. But you haven't ever mentioned, though, that Lydia has any problems. The only thing that we've talked about was the fact that perhaps she's stuck in the middle and she's having to take one side or the other with you and your mom. Have you noticed any perhaps behaviors or that are of concern to you in regards to Lydia?
Well, not a lot, actually.
Okay.
I mean, I do worry about her growing up in adolescence. I think that might be an interesting stage for her. But, I mean, she's a sweet, wonderful girl. And she's very funny. And she's had a sarcastic wit since she was like 2. So that's been good. But, yeah.